Hello and welcome to Fist of Firsts, the podcast where I try and find out what makes the funny people who make us laugh tick. I'm Tim Reed, I'm a TV sitcom writer, and I'll be asking some of our finest comedians and comedy writers a bunch of first-time questions to uncover the pivotal moments in their lives, careers, and their creative process. I want to find out how the people who think differently think, so that we can all learn from the method behind their madness and be more creative. In this episode, I'm chatting to stand-up comedian Mark Simmons. Mark's well known for his one-liners, and if you follow comics on your socials, you're bound to have seen his work. And if not, start following him now. His audience interactions are a joy to behold. He won the UK's Comics Comic Award in 2022, and he's a virtual ever-present in the Edinburgh Joke of the Fringe nomination list, winning it last year in 2024. We chat about his journey into comedy, his approach to comedy, and the art of the one-liner. Enjoy. Mark Simmons, hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, it's nice to properly meet you.
Yeah, it is. We nearly met last August in Edinburgh. I was up there and it was in the Pleasance Courtyard and I spotted you. Because we chatted a few times, on social media and stuff, but never actually met. I thought, I'll go and say hello. And I got quite close and then I saw a look on your face that just, you look quite angry. And
No.
You did.
I'm never angry.
But you did, I don't know, maybe it's your resting face.
Resting bitch face. That's horrible to know.
Oh, you probably weren't, but yeah, I'd walked up and went, oh, no, he's not in the mood.
Oh, always. Oh, no. Always say hello to me. Hello, I'm never in a bad mood, generally. What? Was I on my own?
No, I think you had a couple of people talking to you.
Maybe I was angry. Maybe something had happened.
Yeah.
I can't remember. But I actually had the best Edinburgh I've ever had last year. So I very much doubt I was angry because I feel like I've solved Edinburgh as a concept now because I do the free Fringe every year and I don't go up with a finished article. I go up with work in progress, but it's to be honest, it's good enough as a finished article.
Yeah,
but it's very relaxed. I've got a clipboard on stage. I'm working through stuff. There's no pressure. No one's paid to get in. They can pay on the way out if they've had a nice time. And I'm lucky because that was like my 17th year in a row.
Was it? Up at Edinburgh, was it?
Yeah, except for COVID.
17th.
Yeah, of being up at the Fringe. Not necessarily a solo. So I've got a following now. So that people come and we all have a nice time. And I've not got that thing because I was hanging out with other comics. Some were doing their first year and it's like seeing them all stressed out because every day they're looking at their ticket sales and they're worried about that. And they've got a reviewer coming in. I don't ever have reviewers in, like not a choice, but it's just, I don't look for it, and it's not a finished article, so people. But you
must have some sort of, because you've either won or been in the shortlist of the best joke, the Dave's best joke of the Fringe. Do you not feel any pressure of like I've got to win it again, or I've got to at least be in the top 5 or 6 again? Or
last year I won it for the first time.
Yeah.
And I hadn't thought about it, but now you're giving me anxiety. I forgot to win it again. Oh no!
You do. The pressure's on. Yeah, you've got to at least be in there.
I don't think so now. Actually, I think once.
But everyone will be thinking Mark's going to win it again.
No, I don't think anyone's won it twice in a row before. So that could be my thing. You never know.
Could be.
But you know what? I never ever actually, genuinely, I don't ever think about the joke of the Fringe in the preparation of.
Yeah.
That's just a fun thing that happens when you're there. And if you're lucky enough to get selected and on the list, it's a nice added PR bonus. So I've never done PR either. I've never paid for PR because I never used to have, when I was starting comedy, I just had no money. And I was just and so I don't really believe in it particularly. I mean, I know it works for some people, but I think it's a waste of money if it doesn't work for you. And
do you mean generally, or
yeah? I mean, I'm not ruling it out.
Not just talking about Edinburgh, but
I've never done it. And Edinburgh is always what people say about PR. Like it's rare. I suppose now I'm touring, I could have PR, but luckily with social media, touch wood, I haven't really needed it because people buy tickets off the back of seeing me online. So yeah, I just feel like if I'd put that much money out, I wouldn't be enjoying myself when I'm up there because I'd just be thinking, I'm in debt. And I was brought up, sort of working class sort of family, the concept of being in debt, I hate the idea, like the concept of it. So yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable.
Well, so let's get back to, you said 17 years. I mean, so how old would you have been then when you were first?
I think 23.
Yeah.
I think is the first. I'm 40 now, so does that make sense?
I was going to say, listeners could work all of that out. I just did that in my head and thought 40. So have you turned 40? Or
yeah, the shock on your face that I'm 40. Yeah, just turned, in January.
I don't know how to react now because I'm 56 in 2 or 3 weeks.
No way.
Yes, there's the shock. So for me, like when people say 40, it's like, yeah, I still feel like that's a very young age.
Well, that's when people say to me 30 and they're worried.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
Are you mad?
Don't expect me to look shocked that you're that young because everyone's young now to me.
30s was the best years of my life. I love 30s.
Yeah, well, 40s are great. You've got so much to look forward to.
I can't wait.
Every decade just gets better and better and better. Honestly, I am not joking.
And you always get better at things. So you're getting better at everything that you do.
And cooler, I think. You get cooler, you get more handsome and more more respect. Just everything gets better. So before you even got to Edinburgh, when was comedy a thing in your life? Has it always been that? Was there a moment you can remember when you started to think, do you know what, I'm quite funny? And we'll get on to like the specific, type of comedy you do, because it is a specific type of comedy. But before even that, just thinking comedy might be a thing for me. When was that?
So I always loved comedy. Like really loved it when I was a kid and TV programs and everything like that. But it wasn't something on my radar as a thing I could do because, well, one, growing up where I grew up, there wasn't really.
Where was that?
In Kent.
Yeah.
And like I'd never heard of a comedy club, like until literally my first gig was the first comedy club I'd ever been to. And before that, I didn't know about them. All I knew was, you got comedians on TV and Harry Enfield and all those sort of things. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with.
So you'd never been to a club until you did your first gig in one?
No, the only gig I'd ever been to was when I was really young and we were on holiday in Bournemouth, I think. And I remember we walked along the pier and we saw a sign for Russ Abbott. And Russ Abbott was on TV a lot, and I loved the Russ Abbott show. I was really into sketch shows. And I've never really thought about it, but I really was when I was a kid. Like all the sketch shows I loved. And we just went that evening. It was totally, and it did blow my mind. I loved it so much. And then never went to anything after that like that again until I kind of discovered the comedy world. And it was like discovering it, to be honest.
And so talk me through that then. If you'd never been to one, what made you think to go and perform in one?
I don't know, really. I do know how it happened, but I had a real proper fear of talking in front of people from school age. If I knew I had to do stand up in front of people in class, I'd be dreading it for weeks and months. And the same when I went to university, when we had to do presentations, and I knew.
What did you do at uni?
Sports science.
Did you? Yeah.
So we'd have a schedule, and it would say oral presentation or whatever, and I just would be dreading it the whole time. So although I love the idea of being a sketch comedian, and I had some friends that I worked at a cinema with. There's a group of them. And they kind of made their own sketch videos and things. And back in those days, there wasn't really YouTube or anything. So they had a little DVD. And I remember they gave it to me once. And I loved it. It was so brilliant.
DVD of them performing, of them doing stuff.
It was there, not live. It was like a bit sort of Monty Python-y kind of, not really in that style, but it was in the kind of, you imagine that's how they started. They just made stuff.
Yeah.
So I was always a little bit kind of, I wouldn't say jealous, but I just wanted to be in their gang.
Yeah.
But I was late to it. But anyway, so I knew that was a thing and I always quite fancied that. And then I finished uni and started working in a gym just while I was trying to work out what I was going to do with my life. And one of those guys who I didn't actually know came into the gym and I recognized him from the DVD. So I started chatting to him and then I was showing him some stuff to do in the gym. And he was telling me about he'd been doing the open mic circuit for a year in London. And I was like, I don't know what that is. What is this? And somehow he just convinced me to have a go at it. And he said, you just need 5 minutes and we'll go to downstairs at the King's Head in Crouch End. And you don't have to book in advance. Most people do, but you can rock up at 7, just stand in the doorway. And when Peter comes, just say, I'd like to get on. And he always had dropouts, so there would always be a chance to get on. And that's what I did. And he gave me a week to write 5 minutes. And I now know that's not really long enough to write. But at the time, you're just like, 5 minutes, that's fine. And it just consisted of any kind of thought I'd had in life leading up to that, any funny thought. So there was no particular style. It was just things.
So it wasn't one-liners. It was kind of funny memories and observations.
Well, it was sort of one-liners because I think I wanted to get to the point as quick as possible because I was so scared.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Carr was a big influence. Like, I really liked his comedy because I remember when I first saw him at the Royal Variety performance. So I remember it really clearly because it made such an impact on me, because it was the first time I'd seen one-liners where you kind of have to think about it to get it. You have to, your brain has to be switched on. And I loved that feeling of getting
working it out.
And that really worked for me. So I feel like there was some stuff in that kind of style, but it was a mixture of just thoughts and ideas. And I spent the whole time looking at the floor, apparently, when I was up there.
Yeah.
But I did get some laughs.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me, because then I realized that all I needed was some sort of reaction from the audience to make me feel comfortable. It was when doing presentations when people were just staring at you. Yeah. And you don't know what they're thinking. They could be thinking, this is brilliant, but they could be thinking, look at that. What's he wearing?
That's a really interesting observation. Yeah, as someone who, if anyone's listening, has that fear of public speaking, actually working out that maybe it is the blank faces, that kind of empty reaction, the cluelessness of how it's going down, and totally different than with stand-up. If you're instantly, getting a reaction that an audience can't help but give you, that's really interesting. That you've got that instant validation, I suppose,
and you know what they're thinking.
I'm doing something all right, and you know what they're thinking,
And I do remember when I used to do presentations, if I got a laugh, I remember liking that when I did them, but
that didn't necessarily mean you were doing the right thing as far as getting the points and the marks and passing or failing.
But that laugh was the most important thing to me in the presentation, which says a lot.
What happened next? And did you kind of, was that enough to think, I want to do it again?
Yeah, because it was like discovering this underworld. It felt rock and roll to me. It felt like, and it was just nuts that I've done this gig and now I'm a comedian. Like, I can literally say I'm a comedian, which is so weird. And just the feeling. And I think the downstairs at the King's Head venue, like, it's a legendary comedy night, and especially like the new act night they do there. And just underground, basement, low ceiling. It was round with people, about probably 20 comedians. And it just felt like, it's so hard to describe, but I can still feel that feeling now when I think back to it. And I do miss that, because I don't have that anymore, because you had the nerves and you had it just felt really cool at that time. Yeah. And that was like,
I suppose it was the coolness of it. And for you were saying part of the motivation was to whether it still was, but to be in the gang of that guy. Yeah. To be.
Absolutely.
And did that work? Was there any then connection, or was that sketch gang then just dropped and now I'm Mark Simmons, stand-up comedian, and I'm going my own way? Or was there still this kind of, can I be in your gang?
Well, to be honest, that sketch thing had almost dispersed anyway.
Had it, yeah.
Because they all were friends from school, so they'd all sort of parted ways. So that wasn't really happening now. So me and Stuart, who is the guy, we became really good friends, and we would do a lot of gigs together in the early days. And we even did this little double act at one point. And he gave up comedy in 2010 or something, and then he moved to Australia, got married, and now in the last sort of 4 years he started again, and we've reconnected this thing that we have. And
amazing.
It's really cool,
because you're over there soon, aren't you? This year you're off to Oz, and so you're going to hook up. And
so the last couple of years I've been over there, and he lives in Brisbane, and I always go through Brisbane, so that works. and we're always talking, always like running ideas past each other. And it's just like the old days. Yeah, we're both much, much better at it now.
Yeah. And so getting better, you said that one of the things you learnt in that first 5 minutes, that first set, was that you were looking at the floor a lot. What else was this? What else did you kind of start to learn and hone around the craft?
I remember there's a guy called Bobby Carroll, and he was on, and he's still around. He doesn't do comedy anymore, but like he does little reviews in Edinburgh and stuff. It's nice to see him when I'm up there, because he lives up there now. And I remember he told me my first bit of advice was to move the mic stand, because I took the mic out the stand and left the stand in front. Now, I obviously didn't know about this, but if you're walking behind that, the audience are distracted. Every time you walk behind it, they slightly lose attention to what you're saying. And he said, as soon as you take it out, stick it over to the side. And that's, that was...
Yeah, have it out.
Yeah, really good first lesson, because I now see other comics do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's really bad. And then I now pass that on.
It's so interesting, those little things, isn't it? I don't do stand-up. I do a lot of corporates. And when I was first doing them, especially if it was quite a big audience, and in the stuff I do, which is around how to have ideas, and so I get a lot of audience participation. I'll get them into groups to do stuff and then feedback. And one of the things I would do, and the best bit of feedback I got, so you're kind of holding the mic with one hand, lots of spotlights onto the stage. And so to see the audience as I'm talking to them, I'd put my hand over my...
That is so funny. I was literally about to say this to you, because I had this conversation with a newer act a couple of days ago, and they were talking about the bright lights, and then I gave them that same advice, not to do that.
Yeah, don't, because the advice I was given is you keep doing that, and because you're talking to them and then you're talking to them, you look like you're a pirate, in a panto. You're kind of doing all of that.
You don't want them to know that you're struggling to see.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, they have no idea how bright that light is. You just have to pretend, because sometimes it's really bright and you can't see anything, and sometimes you can see a fair amount. But I like it bright because I want the audience as dark as possible, so that they're totally chilled. Because if there's a lot of light on them, they become self-conscious and they always laugh less.
So from then, doing more gigs and just little ones, and talk me through. So what else did you learn as you grew then, and when did you start to get towards the Mark Simmons kind of one-liner kind of act that we know now?
So my learning process from the first gig was consume as much comedy as possible. So at the gigs, watch everybody, see what they do, who does what I like, what don't I like. But also at the time, I bought VHSs and I bought DVDs off of eBay. Every possible stand-up hour-long show I could find. Yeah. So, and then I discovered some gems on eBay. Like I had this Montreal Comedy Festival lineup show, which was Lee Mack, Rod Gilbert, Danny Boy. So really great comics that weren't known then, or they were kind of on their way up. So watching those guys, and that was quite cool, seeing people that I'd never heard of be brilliant. Like that was quite and also doing it in a way that you've never seen before. It's like I remember when my friend Stuart introduced me to the Stuart Lee, Joe Pasquale joke. That blew my mind, because there's so much going on within the piece, and it was so funny and so clever. And then what I sort of did was I just tried every possible style that there was to try and find what I could do and that worked for me. Actually,
just for listeners, remind us what the Stuart Lee, Joe Pasquale.
It's on YouTube. Go check it out. Just type in Joe Pasquale joke, Stuart Lee. And basically, Joe Pasquale had stolen a joke from, what's his name? Scottish comic. No, Irish. No, it's the Irish comic, because he was in Father Ted, I remember. But he stole this joke on the Royal Variety Show, and Stuart Lee interviewed him.
It wasn't Graham Norton, was it? It wasn't the... No.
It was the guy with the moustache. And he then basically creates his own joke that Joe Pasquale wouldn't be able to steal.
Yes.
And it's like Joe Pasquale walked into a bar, and it's this whole bit, and the whole bit is a metaphor for stealing a joke. It's incredible. Yeah. So that really blew my mind. And that really opened my eyes to sort of what you can do with comedy, because it's not just normal stuff.
Yeah.
And that does bleed into what I do now, even though I do one-liners, which is like a more traditional style of comedy. Within my hour shows, I do have lots of other sections of more creative ways of connecting a show together.
Yes.
And things. And that all comes from...
Like the advice you got from other comedians kind of thing. That's the advice that you use.
Yeah, 100%. So anything that's a bit unusual or something that you think, wow, I wouldn't do that, then I would do it. Because I like to sort of make the audience... I like the audience to be thinking at times, what's he doing?
And then when they work out that you are using everything, that they're looking for the bits of the through line, and then working out, and then when the callback at the end happens, and so all of that is fabulous, because it's as you say, within a set that is mainly one-liners. It feels like they're all separate bits, but actually it's not. It's all part of a bigger.
So that's the so for listeners, that's the my show's on YouTube. It's called Quip Off the Mark, and that's the show I've been touring. And those bits between, because as a one-liner comic, all the one-liner comics, you would think all one-liner comics are all the same, really. But we're really not. If you look at how everyone puts a show together, we're probably very similar in short bursts. But if you look at how we all put shows together, we are all very different in the structure of a show. So I was always trying to find what my thing would be. And I quite like that. Take them away from one-liners for a bit, give them a rest, and just let them think, oh, what's he doing? What's he doing? And then back into the jokes, and then a little bit later, what's he doing now? Why is he doing that? So I quite like that. And in my Edinburgh shows, I've always sort of had that as a thing. Yeah. And I find it just resets the audience really nicely. So they don't get kind of bored of too many jokes. I know, and in a way, it gives you and the audience, I suppose, the best of both worlds. You, because you've then got all these micro little pieces that work fabulously on socials and stuff, but you've also got a show that hooks it all together in a bigger thing. Yeah, I always wanted people to leave feeling like they'd just seen a show.
Yeah. And
being able to talk, like, as they leave in like the theatre, I want them to be talking about the show. And I always felt that if it's just one-liners, unless there's like one particular joke they like, there's not that much for them to discuss. But at the end of this show, it was a whole thing. So that, and also I always say goodbye to people as they leave, and a lot of people are a bit annoyed at me in like a fun way at the end of the tour shows. Because I don't want to give it away too much, but they were a bit worried about me during the show.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah.
So
I know what you're talking about.
So that was fun, because I liked that to sort of build a bit of a discussion.
But it can't be a real annoyance. It must be a kind of like, you got me, annoyance because you got them. Yeah.
But also some people, I think, because like I guess I'm kind of I think I've got a likable persona.
For sure. Yeah.
Not when I'm in the Edinburgh
no, when you're queuing, when you stood there. Maybe that was the juxtaposition I was expecting. Oh, he's going to throw his arms around me. He's lovely. He's clean.
I would have. I 100% would have.
Yeah, but you didn't look like it, honestly. So to get to that level of like, I put on the show and people are coming to see you, from that first 5 minutes, like that first gig, how long did it take? Because at that point as well, obviously, you were still working. You were still working at the gym. That was where your money was coming from. So how long did it take until, one started to take over from the other?
Ages.
Yeah.
Ages. I took a long time to get good, because I didn't know anything. I came in not knowing anything. And then as I sort of go along, I discover a lot of people went on courses or they just known they wanted to be a stand-up for 10 years and have been thinking about it for 10 years. So you learn that way, because but I literally knew nothing. And I kind of, now I look back, I'm kind of glad that I took the long route, because it's worked out. But at the time, there's a few sort of opportunities I got throughout the early days, but I didn't actually seize. But at the time, I was like, I've missed that opportunity. Like, I'll get to like a new act final, and then I'd be so nervous that I'd ruin it and wouldn't win it.
So which competitions did you?
So I did the English Comedian of the Year final in 2009.
Right.
And died on my arse in the final. Horrific.
Why?
Nerves.
It was just nerves.
Too new for that level of competition, because it wasn't really a new act competition like any professional could enter. So I was in there with people that had been going a long time.
And this is how long after your first 5?
Only a couple of years. So not like a lot of gigs, but I've always been better in anything, in sport, in everything, if I'm relaxed. But as soon as I'm nervous or something means something, that always used to get me. I've now got that under control and I know how to deal with that, and I don't get nervous and nothing like that now. But in those back then, I'd do well in a semi-final, get to the final, and then it would the first joke wouldn't hit like I'd want it to, and then I'd rush to the next one, and then I start sweating. And the whole audience,
so you start chasing it.
I've got no stagecraft. I don't know how to deal with this. Whereas I now know I'd go even slower if that happens. But at the time, so they could sense it. So that was terrible. I did the So Think You're Funny semi-final. Had the best gig of my life.
Which year? How long later is this? So that we've gone 2009.
That's later 2009.
So same year,
Yeah, but it was better than the last one.
So you smashed the rounds.
I smashed the semi-final, and the final was fine. It was one of those where I thought maybe I could possibly scrape a third place, but I didn't.
And who was in that year? Can you remember?
So Ivo Graham won it. Then So just before that, a week before that in Edinburgh, I did the Amuse Moose final, had a bad one again. And Sean Walsh, my friend, was there, and he told me, slow down. And then I did in the So You Think You're Funny final, and I had a much better gig, although I didn't get placed. And then I did lots of other little finals. So I did the What Was the Hackney Empire one a year later, and again had a good gig, but didn't place. And then in 2013, I was nominated for the Leicester Mercury Comedian of the Year.
Yes, which is a big one. That's one of the biggest.
It's a good one, because you get nominated by comedy people, so it's always a really good acts are in there. And Ramesh Ranganathan won it that year. Yeah.
So this is 2013, did you say?
Yeah, I think so.
So we're talking because it's a long period, isn't it? So that's 4 years. So between those two, so you're still working. I'm guessing you're still working carrying on doing the gym stuff.
Yeah, doing that. And the gym were quite good because they let me go part time after a while, just to sort of count once I done.
That's good.
But not at this point. I was nowhere near that at this point.
So still full time working. 4 years on. During that 4 years, just carrying on doing the circuit a bit.
That's like 5 or 6 years since I started.
Yeah.
Yeah. So doing the circuit, that was the most tired I've ever been. Is working full time, going off to a gig, coming back.
And how often were you gigging?
Like trying to gig as many days as possible, like 5 days a week if I could.
Is it really? Yeah.
Yeah, I look back now and I think it's crazy that I used to do it, and how I didn't crash my car.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because I know how crazy it is. Those years, for people who've made it and got all the way and then become celebrated and famous and recognised and brilliant at what they do. It takes a long time, doesn't it? And those crazy years of working, working and gigging and refining and learning, and
it's really built into you in the early days of take everything.
Yeah.
So do every gig, because you don't know what opportunity you'll miss if you don't do the gig. But Ramesh won that year, but I came third. That was kind of a slight turning point where I was starting to get there. And I got a meeting with a big agent off the back of that. Or it might be a slightly bit later, but that's where they first saw me, this big agent. Yeah. And I had this meeting and I just played the meeting terribly. Like I went in naive, I went in humble, whereas looking back now, they wanted me to go, right, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want this now. And I was going in going, well, I'm probably not quite ready for that yet. Yeah. Which I probably wasn't ready for it. So I actually now look back on it and think I'm quite glad that I didn't get thrown in at the deep end. But at the time I was gutted because I was working, I was tired, I just wanted to do this full time. So there's so many emotions in those early days.
At that time, you were wishing, I wish I'd played the game and known how to get them on board straight away, because then I'd be on my way. Yeah,
but I knew nothing about the industry. Yeah. Literally nothing at all. I didn't know how agents worked. I didn't know how you get onto TV. I didn't know anything.
So even at that time, you hadn't really got like a good network of mates that were doing it?
No, because a few people, like Sean was... well, the thing is, I met Sean but he shot up early. So I knew him on the open mic briefly, and we always got on, but we weren't close mates because he shot off and was doing pro gigs really quick, and we only really connected again once he was successful, and then he brought me in on tour, and then we sort of connected that way and became good friends. But before that, we knew each other, but I wouldn't have known him enough to ask him questions about how things work or anything like that.
Okay, time for a quick break. And the comedian Mark was talking about that Stuart Lee did a bit about Joe Pasquale stealing his joke, the Irish comedian he mentioned. It was Michael Redmond, who played Father Stone in Father Ted. And the joke was that Michael Redmond, an Irishman with big bushy eyebrows and a big bushy moustache and a really deadpan delivery, would walk onto stage with a carrier bag and just stand there in silence for a minute before saying, "A lot of people say to me, 'Get out of my garden.'" And then Joe Pasquale did the same gag at the London Palladium. That's the thing that Mark was talking about then. So, what's the best joke you've stolen? Email me. Tell me the joke. Or leave a voice note and actually tell me the joke. And I'll share the best in the next episode. Okay, let's get back to it. So what year was the tour when you supported Sean?
2014, I think. But what that meant was I could then go full-time comedy because I had 50 dates in the diary. So I could give up my job then and just go for it.
And what difference does that make in terms of, obviously, in terms of your life and what you're doing, and but in terms of the way your approach to comedy and your the ability, I suppose, to kind of learn quicker because you're doing it, and focusing on it. How did that affect, your stuff?
I learned so much from that tour because one, I had like Sean, who is one of the most naturally gifted comics. Like his mind of how he can think of an idea, put it on stage and it be live at the Apollo Ready is incredible. Like he would come up with an idea in the car, just in passing, say, "Oh, this is an idea." And then I'll do my bit. There'd be an interval. He'd go on and he'd open with that bit and it would be excellent. And that was quite something. So I kind of was trying to compete with Sean when I was, as in, I'd see what he could do and I go, well, I need to be able to do that. So he's got this thing where he gets a laugh and it just stays there because he's just built it and built it and built it and built it and built it. So I became very ruthless with my jokes because I wanted to be up there all the time.
Yeah.
So my 20 minutes became so tight. So when I went back in the clubs, all of a sudden I was booked more because I was so consistent.
Because you were smashing it.
But then what's interesting is I then went back and I watched some other, like I had old like Milton Jones DVDs and things. And when I actually looked back and really analysed it, in the one-liner style, you can't be up there the whole time. You have to come back down with little laughs and then come back up. Because otherwise there's nowhere to go. It's diminishing returns. So especially like over an hour. So then I started thinking about how to structure it, because sometimes you have a joke which are like cleverer jokes, like thinkers, and they're not always big smashers, but they're these nice ones that sort of spread around the room really kind of. And you just work out, right, so I need to put some of those in between some of those other big hitters. So you got sort of up and down, but you're always in control of the room.
Yeah.
So I learned so much, and stagecraft I learned a lot from Sean as well. He gave me a lot of advice about how to perform to the big rooms, because I'd never played theatres before that really.
But that's so interesting, the way you talk about the ups and the downs and the flow of the performance, and particularly around one-liners, because I think a lot of people won't have really thought of it like that it is music, in that you can't stay kind of up here all the time. You've got to kind of bring it down and have that texture and flow and moments of consideration and getting the audience to think a bit harder before you get them all laughing again. Well, when they're laughing, when we laugh, we don't think, we're kind of reacting. So you need those bits of thinking and absorbing and contemplating and remembering what I laughed at before and kind of second guessing what the thread might be, and all of those things make it enjoyable on a as an audience on a level that's not just you're making me. It's not just being tickled.
Yeah.
It's being seduced. So how do you then go about structuring that? How do you go about working out what's needed at which part of a 20 minutes?
So it's like I just sort of feel it when I'm doing it. So I have to do a lot of. So if I'm looking at it now I'm writing my new tour. I don't really think about that when I've got the raw bones of it. But what I'll do is I'll have my jokes in sections because I feel like that's easy to remember, even though they're not linked technically as a story. But for an audience, if they're not really thinking about it, subconsciously they're just like, oh, it feels natural. He's not sort of jumping from thing to thing. So yes. I'll have sections of jokes. And then once I've performed them a few times, I'll keep moving bits about, like, if I've got, say, 8 jokes about relationships, as I've done them a few times, I'll know, okay, this one and that one are the big laughs. Yes. So for me, that's the in and the out. So I want to end the section on a big laugh and I want to start the section on a big laugh.
Yeah. And
then you just start to work out what goes where as you do it. But they're the most important things, because if you're transitioning to doing, so say, like I said, I do something where the audience is like, oh, I wonder what's he doing there?
Yeah.
You don't want to go into that bit off the back of a lukewarm laugh.
Yes.
You want to go into that bit, they've had a big laugh, then they're like, oh, okay, we still trust this guy. What's he doing?
And those are the in and outs of the sections, as you said.
Yeah.
And so how long, so in a 20, for example, how many sections?
Maybe like 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah, so they're kind of like 3 or 4 minutes each section, and you need an in and an out, and then you can have some.
But these days I do the improvised jokes as well, which, depending on the gig, that can take quite a while, because if it's going well, I'll just keep doing that stuff. Yeah. So then maybe I'll only need 3 sections, and then that. Would
you happily, like, if the improv stuff's going well, you know which sections you can drop without losing the thread?
I'm because there's no real thread when I'm doing a 20. With the hour, there's definitely more structure, so I do have to get back onto track. But
the 20 just has a really strong top and tail that links. Or
I'm very relaxed with a 20 now, and I really love that, because I don't. I've got at the moment I'm working on my new bits in. So I've got, when I say new bits, the bits that will be in my next tour. So I've got stuff for the next tour that I know is finished and ready to go. So they'll be in there, but I'll also have other bits I want to slide in to sort of test. So I'm building the hour. So I don't really have a set, like, this bit goes there, that bit goes there. I'll vibe the room and see what's happening. It's interesting because because I've got lots of things I know I want to try and do. When there is improv, my brain, when I'm doing a bit, it's a bit like chess. I'm kind of working. It's really, I don't know how it happens, but I think most comedians probably have this, where I'm kind of working moves ahead, trying to work out how I get back to where. So I'm going like, that joke all the time. I'm saying this other joke. My brain is trying to work out how I'm getting back, and I think it's a really good, mental training.
So if you were going to try and teach somebody how to do that,
I don't know if you can.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I mean, if you know it's a concept of what you can do, but I feel like you have to. Maybe it's partly experience and instinct. I guess that's a lot of instinct of knowing what works and what doesn't work. And if I do this, I can then do that.
Yeah, because as a sitcom writer, structuring is vital, plotting out storylines and how everything hooks up and making sure you got all the right bits in all the right places. But I can spend, days on that in front of me and cross things out and move things around, or have them Post-it notes on a wall, or whatever I need to do. But if you're doing that live in the moment with an audience that want to laugh while you're doing it, I mean, that really is a conjuring trick. That
I think one of the key points is you really have to know your stuff well.
Yes.
I think if there's any element of you trying to remember what the joke is and how you word it, then I don't think you can do all of those.
So it's almost your muscle memory knows the stuff. Your subconscious knows the stuff. You don't have to think about the stuff. You can think about the structure.
Yeah, it's much harder when I'm doing like a full work in progress hour. to do that, because a lot of the stuff I am thinking, okay, how does this bit work? How does that bit work?
Yeah.
But I do set those gigs up in a way that the audience know what's happening. So they will allow me to go, oh, hang on, how does this one go? And they quite like that when you're sort of playing around.
And I guess now your audience are there because they know you and they know your stuff, and that's kind of what they're expecting and hoping for. Yeah.
What's interesting is I do get a lot of people that come out of work in progress, they say they actually prefer that because they're getting that sort of peek behind the curtain at how things work. Yeah. And then I think, well, maybe that's what I should do. Maybe that's a thing.
All the time.
Or is it, but in my head, that's a cop-out because you're sort of cheating. Basically, you can get away with something not working.
It's the beauty of having both, isn't it? Would the peek behind the curtain still feel like a peek behind the curtain when all you've got is the peek behind the curtain, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You probably need the other thing so that it feels like, oh, I'm getting a sneaky glimpse.
So when I was in Edinburgh last year, so like I said earlier, I always do sort of work in progress. I was doing a couple of bits where I was explaining a journey of a joke that I've had. So a joke that I've been working on a long time, and then what I changed and what I ended up with. And that really worked. It got a lot of laughs. Like when I was doing the explanation, loads of people afterwards said they loved that bit.
Yeah.
So I feel like I might keep a couple of those in the show just to give the audience a little...
It's an extra bit of the music, isn't it? It's an extra bit of the...
Because part of my new show is I've got the set list on stage that they can see at all times.
Oh, really?
It does kind of feel like it looks like a slightly workshoppy environment.
Yeah.
I might pepper it, but I don't want to put too much of that in because I do feel like that's a bit of a cop-out.
And then drilling down into the improv stuff that we were talking about. So when you're, asking people, oh, what did you do? What's your hobby? And then your one-liner on the back of it.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Again, if you were training someone in how you do it, do you have a process or a method where, it's a bit like watching someone do a Rubik's Cube really quickly, where you can in the moment think, because I don't, having watched a lot of your stuff, it's not a bank. You don't have a bank of those like one-liners or reference points to different jobs and stuff, do you? And then you kind of, sleight of hand manufacture an improvised link, or are you thinking in the moment?
So by this point, I've done it for so long. I have got a huge bank of them. Yeah. Because what happened was when I started doing. So for a long time, I've done sort of random jokes, just give me a random joke, blah, blah, blah. And I started, the trouble with just getting random topics is the audience can throw the gig because they're allowed to shout the most horrendous things. Yeah. And like depending on the gig, someone once shouted genocide. Yeah. And you can't really deal with that because if you don't do the joke about genocide, you failed. And if you do the joke about genocide, now you're the bad guy for doing a joke about genocide. And even if it's not, because I'd never do a joke about genocide, but you could do a joke that's slightly linked. I could think of one, but I don't want to. So so it depends on, sometimes I do it, but I'll vibe the gig if I think the gig's all right. But then I started to focus more on hobbies. I didn't want to ask what people do for a living because that's like the classic compare thing. And it's been done to death, really. So, and the beauty of hobbies is there's so many. Yeah. It's infinite, really, of what people do and what you can class as a hobby. So when I first started it, I probably had a bank of very few. Like I had just some jokes I had about hobbies. So when they came up, bang, I'd do that joke. But then other things would come up, and it's sort of surprising how my brain, when you're in the moment, can think of things on the spot. And then once an improvised bit worked, that's sort of now in the bank. Yes. So you build up all these things. So it's unusual now to find something that hasn't come up before. Yeah. But when it does, I love it. Yeah. Because one, you're improving your improv skills, I guess, but also you're topping up the bank, and it's making it fun for me. When I do think of something, I get a boost of dopamine or whatever. And you can see that as the audience, because I think you can see when your own laughter is like a genuine, like, oh, I've just surprised myself, I've just tickled myself. because you're on the edge, because you don't know if you're going to fail. Like I had one the other day, which I put up. It wasn't the hobbies. I just said any topic, and someone said buses. And I did something in the moment that in my head, I was like, I know this makes sense to me, but I don't know if everyone's going to understand what I've done. Yeah. So I just went for ages looking like I hadn't got one.
And I went, it's brilliant.
I went, I've got two.
Yeah. Fabulous.
So for me, that had never happened before. So that was a fun bit.
I suppose that illustrates the balance, isn't it? Of if it's obvious that to get it and everyone's going to go, oh, well, that's clearly that. Then it's not as rewarding as kind of if you have to work a little to get the subtext, in which case some people won't get it.
You have that with all joke writing, though.
Of course, yeah.
Because so my natural instinct is always to go cleverer than obvious.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to be, like my friends will say, you're too far away from the connection.
Yeah.
And you have to simplify it, but you don't want to simplify it too much.
No,
because like you say,
you lose the reward.
Yeah, because it becomes obvious, and it's like a rather than a proper laugh.
Yeah.
So it's finding that balance, which is fun.
And I suppose only experience gets you there of kind of knowing how to get. So talking of experiences, so we got to the Sean support tour, because that's now like 8-9 years ago. So talk us through that then, the last bit of the career so far, those last 7, 8, 9 years, because I suppose that coincides with socials really taking off as well, and the impact of those kind of short form posts that you're so good at on Twitter, X, Insta now, I suppose is the
Instagram and TikTok and all those things.
On all of those. So how's that impacted? How's the impact of social media? And then because you've not yet, how many of your own tours have you done?
Just one.
Yeah.
But it was long.
Yeah.
So that was because of social media. So what happened was I did Mock the Week.
Yes.
Which was massive for me. Like for me, that was like the nod of the industry. Just to go,
you're on telly.
Just to say, yeah, this is good. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd been headlining clubs before that for a while, but you still have that little bit of like, I just want that one thing, just so I can also something to put on the posters for the promoters and things like that. So that was a massive deal to me, but I did it a couple of times, but I don't think it does quite what it used to do with being able, like, for example, being able to sell tickets and things. But off the back of that, that was 2019, and then we went to lockdown, and then I did one of the episodes in lockdown. And then I think it was during lockdown we were talking, or maybe just before lockdown, we were talking about maybe putting on a small tour off the back of Mock the Week, just to test the water to see. Yeah. So at that point, I hadn't got a social media following or anything like that. And then in lockdown, I learned how to edit videos. And luckily, I'd got a few recordings of old Edinburgh shows, and in which some mad stuff happened with the audience.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to put my jokes out, but I thought I can put those bits out because I'm not burning anything.
Yeah.
And not many people were putting things on TikTok at that point, like stand-up wise. And every video went viral, and it was a real massive boost.
Yeah, wow.
And then slowly the other socials caught up with that one.
So this would be what, like 2021?
Yeah, 2022. I think my Instagram blew up at the beginning of 2022, and that changed the game really for me.
Yeah, amazing.
Because the tour dates we had on sale were sold out quite quick. They're only small. They're sort of maybe 80 to 100 seaters. So then we were like, well, they're selling, so let's add some more slightly bigger venues. And then they sold. And then we went back to some other places that we'd been, and it just grew and grew. And we did 2 years, 4 months, I think. And it was 216 shows by the end of the run. Which was just unbelievable. I still can't really believe it. It's a bit mad, really.
Yeah.
I remember the first tour show I did in Brighton. I'd played this club for years and years. So it felt like a home gig, really, because I played it so much.
Yeah.
And then sitting backstage, knowing there were 300 people out there that had all bought a ticket just to see me.
Yeah.
That was the moment where I was like, wow, this is surreal. Really, really, really weird being in the same place where I'd had lovely gigs, but no one really cared that it was me doing the gig.
You were a bonus.
Yeah.
And now you were the main dish.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of the process. It just built and built and built, really.
So now you're at that. So you got the tours just done. You're doing some specials at the moment, and then there's the Australia New Zealand tour.
So the comedy special went out on YouTube, so that's out. And
yes,
people can watch that. And I'm doing some Mark Simmons and Friends shows this year.
Yes. And what are they? So tell me about through those.
So they are. It's a way that I can. So if people want to see me in this year, I can play to those people with my new ideas. But I've got 3 other comedians on with me. So the pressure isn't all on me with the new stuff. Although we did the first one the other day and it went really well. I ended up doing about 50 minutes at the end.
And you're in Liverpool tomorrow night. Obviously, when this goes out, you'll have been in Liverpool about 3 or 4 weeks ago. But
Liverpool was great.
How'd it go? Yeah.
Oh, smashed it.
Yeah, it was good.
Absolutely smashed it.
Is it true McCartney was there? He came.
He did. He got up and we did a number together.
A thing together. Yeah. Yeah,
it was great.
You wrote a new song, but live in the moment. Yeah,
it was like SNL.
And so just in the last has your creative process changed at all? So where the way you come up with material now that you know your product so well, for want of a better word, as how you come up with and bank and develop those ideas, has that changed?
So in the early days, I tried every possible way of creating, and I'd sit in front of a computer, I'd go walking, I do this, I do that. But now I've got a system. So if I'm not under a huge pressure for a deadline, as I'm going about life, I tend to spot wordplay. That's kind of, I think that's what I'm quite good at. So my brain will jump to wordplay when people are talking, and I'll write the wordplay in my phone. And then once I've got maybe 10, I'll sit down, and that's when I sit and I then craft the idea and work out how to put it together. And once I've got an idea of what I'm going to do, I'll then try it at a new material gig, watch it back. How did it go? What can I tweak? What do I change? Do I change the angle? Do I change the emotion? So that's the process. And then until I get it to the point where it's a banger, basically. Yeah. But what I think's changed is my instincts are much better now. So I know if a joke is worth pursuing. Like I'll know if there's wordplay that's really worth.
Yeah.
So the joke actually that I was doing in that show in Edinburgh that I changed. Give the listeners a little bit of an example.
Yeah.
I knew this wordplay was good, but it wouldn't work. So I'll tell you the joke how it works now. So I went to the off license. I asked a guy for some wine. He said, we like boxed wine. I said, I never had that before. He said, it comes with a little tap on the bottom. I said, keep your hands to yourself. So that works now, which I'm so chuffed about. And the little tap on the bottom, I couldn't work out why it wouldn't work, because it's perfect as a wordplay.
Yeah.
Because it means the two things, and they all make sense in the scenario. I couldn't understand. And I've got a podcast called Jokes with Mark Simmons. And the idea is comedians come on and we chat through jokes they can't get to work. So for my listeners, they would have heard me talk about the wine joke a lot because it's really annoying me. And every time I come on, I'd say, well, I tried it this way, tried it that way. But in the end, I didn't actually have to change the wording. I changed how I was saying it. For some reason, when I first did it, I thought the delivery should be quite fun. So I did it more camp. So
Yeah.
So I'd go, keep your hands to yourself. But I think the core of it is that in that scenario, my character knows it's a joke.
Yes.
Like he's making a joke in the scenario.
Yeah.
Whereas the new version, I'm an idiot. I'm being serious. It's like it's like Naked Gun. It's like he's every joke he's saying deadly serious. Like he believes what he's saying.
Yeah.
And that goes from no laughs to a big laugh.
Yeah.
But my instincts told me not to give up on that one. Whereas in the old days, I wouldn't have probably known the difference between what's a good idea and a bad idea.
What's changed with your instinct then? Obviously, it's got there through experience, but what is it? What's the criteria do you think it's thinking through?
But I think because the wordplay it all makes sense.
Yes.
So for me, and this is another difference between lots of different one-liner comics. I like logic.
Yeah.
So I want it to be in the real world. I don't really want a joke to be surreal. But then over the years, I've written quite a few. So in my last special, there are a few jokes that aren't in the real world, which, for example, like this one where I say I've got the other day, my little baby pet shark said his first word. He said, da, 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 da. So with that joke, well, I haven't got a pet shark, and that's a ridiculous setup. And I would not write that joke now.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And is that because you've decided that the Mark Simmons brand, if you like, is based more in the logical world?
I think those jokes work better.
Yeah.
And I feel like you do take the audience slightly out of your...
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a one-liner comic, that's your thing, then everyone's on board. Whereas if everything's in the real world and then all of a sudden it's not, people go, that's weird.
So you've diluted it yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Got you.
But then talking about structure, if you noticed in my special, that joke is in a section that I read from a book.
Yes.
And it's designed for bits that didn't really fit in the show, essentially.
These are old jokes that I wrote that I'm sharing with, So you've given it kind of permission to be in there by doing that. Yeah.
And nice. I think even before I do it, I say, oh, this is a silly one.
Yes.
I preempt it so they know that it's just a joke.
Oh, Mark, that's so interesting chatting to you about and trying to get into all of that. I'm increasingly, a lot of my listeners now are people who are looking either to get into comedy or early in on the stages of it, whether it's as a performer or as a writer. So I think what's really interesting is to ask you, if out of all of that you've learned since that first 5 minutes, if you could go back to Mark then, you're just about to come on and hand him one of the tools or techniques or lessons that you've learnt since then, what would it be, do you think? I
think I would give myself the ability to know that I'm good at it. Like, the hardest part of the whole process was doubt. Is when you don't know if you should be doing it. Like the amount of times I'd have a bad gig, and I mean, I haven't done this for so long, but when I actually think about it, it's awful. Like I used to beat myself up so bad after a bad gig, like just on the train home back to Kent, looking I always think about this because I remember it so clearly. It's just looking at the reflection of myself in the window of the train, just going, what are you doing? But now I look back, I'm like, well, yeah, it's a bad gig. It was an open mic gig in London. There's just got comics there. They don't care about what I'm doing or anything. But at the time, you're just like, oh, it's me. Should I be doing it? And then the next day, you'll do a gig that goes well, and you'll be on top of the world, and it's just this up and down. Whereas I think you just got to. Obviously, this isn't very useful to the listeners because you can't really do that for yourself. But it's just knowing that. Like, don't always have a go at yourself. No,
I think that's hugely interesting, isn't it? Hugely important is for people to know, to have that confidence, that self-confidence, and see those moments rather than opportunities to beat yourself up, but to kind of go, do you know, I learned so much. Because now if you're looking back, you realise what you learnt. Yeah. It's easy to say, isn't it? We all learn from when things go wrong, but we really do.
Yeah. But I mean, I think you can't just be like, ignore what's happening, but I think if you can look back at it and be logic again, be logical about what happened on the night. Don't just assume that you're not good at this. Just be like, why did that happen? Like really, and it took me a long time to really look at my act like that. It's like, why didn't that work? I didn't really ever do that. I just went, oh, that didn't work. I'm rubbish at this. but why didn't it? What can I do?
And actually, that's such an important point, is applying that logic. And it seems almost counterintuitive, doesn't it? Because, especially, when your big thing is wordplay and those, and puns and all of the rest of what's wonderful about wordplay and one-liners. But is to say that actually at the root of it, there's a real logic and formula to why something works or doesn't. And therefore you can learn it and get better and better at it.
Yeah, and it's not always you. It could be, it's the environment. It's how were you introduced? What's happening in the room? Are people eating in the room? Is the light on them? Is the light fully on me? Am I in shadow as I walk? Am I in and out of shadow? Is there a light at the back of the stage that's blinding people, that's putting people off? Is the sound bad? There's a million reasons of why things like affect a gig. So
maybe some of that had happened in Edinburgh just before I saw you, and that was why you looked so livid.
It's so funny, that, isn't it?
You probably didn't. It was probably me. It was probably me going.
But you do think that, don't you? Because if you sort of know someone, but you don't know them, and I get that because I would always opt not to talk to someone because I'd be like, well, maybe they don't want me to talk to them.
Maybe I was looking for a reason to kind of go and just, Maybe
I was taller than you expected. And
that was it. You just intimidated me. Mark, what a pleasure. A real pleasure, a real treat to chat to you. Thanks so much for coming on.
It was nice to meet you properly.
Yeah, I'll see you in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Are you up this year? You back from Oz?
I'm now going to be tempted if I see you to look as pissed off as possible and tell you to fuck off.
Exactly.
So I will be in Edinburgh. I'm doing another sort of work in progress.
Oh, amazing.
Show.
Do you know where yet? Can you say?
Yeah, I do the same every year. Liquid Rooms at 1:45. And my new tour's on sale now, 2026 tour at marksimmons.co.uk. And I've got too many things. And my special. So basically, if you think, I might want to go and watch it, go watch my special first. If it's your cup of tea, then come to the tour.
Cheers, Mark. Thank you so much.
No, thanks, mate. That's great.
What a pleasure that was to finally meet Mark. And he's not scary at all. He's a lovely man. And some brilliant lessons in all of that, like consume as much comedy as you can. Mark talked about how incredibly useful it was for him to watch all other comedians, discover the lesser known comics and see what works and what doesn't. He talked about how much he learned when he started gigging all the time. So as soon as he went pro and gigged every night supporting Sean Walsh, that's when he really started to refine and fine-tune his craft. And when you get that concentrated burst of practicing your art, time after time after time after time, that's when you really go up a gear. And he talked about how he wished he hadn't beaten himself up when things went wrong in those early days, and how important it was for him to learn to analyse those occasions, and what were all the factors in and out of his control. And if you can work that out, it's such a great lesson, because then we can focus on doing something about the things in our control and not worrying about the things out of our control. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new one. And I include loads of the brilliant tools and tips from across the Fist of Firsts catalogue in my Fist of Funny comedy writing courses. And you can find more details of those on my website, timreed.co. And you can follow me on my socials at timreed69, or just subscribe to my email newsletter for news on all things Fist of Firsts and Fist of Funny. See you next time. Thanks for listening.